Somebody handed this placement a job it never applied for. Nobody has taken it back since. You are in a room. Two people are talking, and about 4 seconds ago, something went wrong in it. Nothing was said, nothing is visible, and you already know. Your shoulders have changed, and you are already working out what to say to bring the temperature down. Nobody asked you to do that. It went unnoticed by everyone present, and you will not mention it afterwards. If this is familiar, there is a good chance your natal moon sits in Libra, and that the reflex is older than any relationship you currently have. There is an image that fits this placement better than the scales do, an unsigned treaty. Terms everyone is observing. Nobody read them aloud. Nobody put a name at the bottom. And the whole arrangement holds anyway, as long as one party keeps adjusting. And that party is this one. Which brings us to what the usual descriptions have the wrong way round. It is not a peacemaker by nature. It is a peacemaker by appointment. Somebody handed it the post, early, and it has been showing up for the shift ever since. Ask what this placement does after a bad day, and the answer is relational. It does not withdraw and it does not escalate. It goes to check whether things are all right between you. Recovery arrives through restored relation and only through that. So the question worth holding on to is, who appointed it? Somebody did. There was a house, and in that house the temperature needed managing, and a child took the post. We get to that shortly, and it explains almost everything that follows. Start with what was handed down, because that is the shape of this placement. Not money and not looks. A role. Somewhere behind it, there is a household where being agreeable was the price of the room staying calm, and the child who paid it paid willingly. What that built is an instrument of extraordinary sensitivity. This placement can tell you the mood of 6 people at a table without looking up from its plate. It registers a change in someone's breathing as information. Very few placements can do this. Almost none can switch it off. Here is the crucial detail, and it is where the trouble starts. Given an imbalance, this placement does not correct the room. It corrects itself. It does not level the room. It tilts itself until the room looks level, and then it holds that position. Which is why the charm is real and also structural. It is not performance in the cynical sense. It is a genuine talent for making other people feel easy, quietly doing a second job underneath, keeping everyone pleasant enough that nothing ever has to be confronted directly. It is also genuinely fair, which is rarer than it sounds. This placement will argue your side better than you did, then hold both positions at once without flattening either one. The problem is not that it cannot see clearly, it sees too many things clearly at the same time. And there is a sentence it has not said. Anyone carrying this placement can name it inside 3 seconds. Short, unremarkable, addressed to one specific person. It has been sitting there for years. What it costs to finally say it is where this reading finishes. So, who appointed it? Look for a house where one adult's mood set the weather for everyone, and where nobody named this out loud. The child in that house learned to forecast. Forecasting became management, and management became a personality. Nobody ever told it the post had been abolished. The house changed, the people changed, and the appointment carried over into every room since. It still arrives at a dinner party, quietly on duty, scanning, adjusting, keeping the evening pleasant for people who never hired it. The first cost is strange and very specific. Try asking what it wants, really wants, for itself, with nobody else in the frame. And there is a pause. Not evasion, an actual gap. The preference was never developed because developing one was risky. The second cost arrives later and sideways. Avoided conflict is not canceled. It is deferred, and it accrues. 11 small swallowed moments arrive together as one disproportionate reaction over something trivial. And everyone, including this placement, is baffled by it. Or it does not arrive at all, and the placement leaves instead, quietly, completely, after months of appearing fine. The other person experiences this as sudden. It was not sudden. It was the only exit available to someone who never learned to object in the middle. And the honest part, which this placement will recognize immediately. Some of the fairness is a hiding place. Holding every position at once is genuinely wise, and it also means never standing anywhere long enough to be argued with. Wisdom and cover can occupy the same behavior. In a relationship, this placement offers something genuinely rare, sustained attention. It notices what you are like, adjusts to it, and remembers. Being with it feels like being handled well. That is not manipulation. It is the appointment, applied with real affection. Disagreement is where it struggles. Raise your voice and it will not raise its own. It will go smooth, reasonable, accommodating in a way that ends the argument without resolving it. You will feel like you won and also like nothing happened because nothing did. And here is what it actually wants from you, which it will almost never request out loud. Push back. Ask a second time. Refuse the first pleasant answer. Being agreed with and being met are two different experiences, and it has had far more of the first. The distance it creates is polite rather than cold. It stays present, stays kind, and moves somewhere you cannot reach. Nothing to point at, no incident, just a room where two people are getting on well, and one of the two is not actually in it. Its opposite runs the other method entirely. An Aries moon says the thing immediately, badly, and gets it over with. The room is briefly awful and then genuinely finished. This one keeps the room lovely for a decade and finishes nothing. Neither of those is the mature version. The exercise is smaller than a confrontation. State one preference a day, unhedged. Not a negotiation, not a suggestion. A preference. It will feel rude, and it is not. If you have this placement, tell me which house it falls in. I read them. The work this placement gravitates toward puts it between parties. Negotiation, design, diplomacy, anything where two incompatible requirements have to become one workable object. The pull is toward the seam between fields rather than the fields themselves, and that seam is where it thinks best. And it is unusually good there. It can sit between two people who cannot stand each other and produce something both of them will sign. Colleagues describe it as easy to work with, which badly undersells it. What it is doing is difficult and almost entirely invisible. There is also a real eye here. Proportion, arrangement, the immediate sense that something is a fraction wrong and precisely where. This is Venus doing the work, and in this placement it applies to rooms, sentences, and relationships without any distinction between them. Put a difficult manager above it and something very specific happens. It does not resist, and it does not comply. It manages upward, smoothing, translating, absorbing the unreasonable request and quietly redistributing the cost onto itself and whoever happens to be nearby. Which works until it is asked to decide. Promote this placement, and the first real test is a decision that will make somebody unhappy no matter what. It can hold a room together and cannot hold a position inside it. That gap is where careers here stall. The version that gets past it stops treating a decision as a betrayal of the losing side. Choosing does not mean the other party was wrong. It means the thing had to be one way rather than both. Saying that out loud is the entire promotion. Back to the sentence. Whatever it happens to be, I did not want that. That hurt me. I would rather not. It has stayed unsaid for years on the theory that saying it would break something. This is the assumption that turns out to be wrong. What it would break is the unsigned treaty, and the unsigned treaty was never a relationship. It was an arrangement kept level by one person leaning. The treaty only works when both parties are actually in the room. The cost is real and worth naming plainly. Some people in this placement's life are there for the accommodation and will not stay once it ends. That is information, arriving late. It is also the only way to find out who was there for the person rather than the service. There is a version of this that is the fairest thing in anyone's life, able to hold two truths without collapsing either, and now carrying a third one in the room as well, its own. Fairness that includes yourself is a different instrument entirely. A final piece of sky, and it belongs to this sign more than to any other. The moon and the sun appear almost exactly the same size in our sky. One of them is 400 times larger and 400 times further away, and the two effects cancel each other out precisely. That balance is a coincidence of where we happen to be standing, and it will not last. And this sign's own brightest stars are still called the Northern and Southern Claw. It was cut out of Scorpio. Balance is not a law. It is something somebody decided, and somebody has to keep deciding it.